All right. Good afternoon, all. We got a tropical update here. We're going to go ahead and do this. This is on Florence and Gordon.
Season, and it seems just over the past couple of days, a switch has been flipped, and we are now very active. Not one system, not two, but we have three, two of which have names, and that would be Florence and Gordon, both tropical storms, and an emerging African easterly wave that is starting to get itself organized that will likely get the name Helene in the next 3 to 5 days as it moves into a very favorable environment for development.
That's this
you can
one.
see the points of interest here on the overall image, satellite image of the Atlantic Basin. We can see Gordon just off the southern tip of Florida this morning so far, Tropical Storm Florence, and that emerging African easterly wave that's getting itself a little bit more situated and organized. Let's start off with the more imminent threat that's actually already impacting parts of the United States, and that would be Tropical Storm Gordon. Special advisory this morning at 8:30 a.m. as they gave it its name, Gordon, and it's got winds right now 45 miles per hour with gusts up to around 60 or so. This was actually a tropical wave that emerged off the coast of Africa like 12 days ago and survived enough through very harsh conditions before it reached an area of favorable development. And this is what has occurred. It is now located in an area called the Florida Straits, and this is a notorious breeding ground for some big-time storms. Now, are we saying Gordon has a future of becoming a blockbuster storm? Highly unlikely that it will not, but it will be tracking into an area with more favorable conditions. Certainly the sea surface temperatures are warm enough. The Gulf of Mexico is just plain old cooking right now. We have 85 to 87 degree water temperatures, and that could certainly promote a very small time frame for rapid intensification before it tracks to the north and west into the Gulf Coast. Here's the latest National Hurricane Center projected forecast here, and you notice pretty straightforward here, off to the north and west, over the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico for about 36 hours. It will be moving at a pretty fair clip. You see the time notation here at Tuesday, 2 a.m., and a day later, it's already up and over the coastline there. So it covers a lot of ground in that 24-hour time frame, gets some forward momentum, a little bit kicked forward, a little bit faster, but I think it should be enough time that we see it strengthen a little bit more than what's being depicted here on the intensity forecast. Here's a close-up look of where potential landfall may be. Again, this is not set in stone. It'll certainly kind of meander either east or west, anywhere from Mobile Bay all the way through New Orleans off to the south and southwest there. This part sort of situation here is not very good, especially funneling water up on the eastern side of that into the New Orleans area. Even with a higher-end tropical storm, lower-end Category 1, it's certainly going to cause some issues there, so really bears watching as we go through the next couple of days. Now, when we look at a system, we need a lot of check marks to see how its future is going to pan out, right? So we need a very moist environment. Vertical profile of the atmosphere has to have plenty of moisture available. It's a tropical system, right? So it needs that. And we're seeing that here as we switch up the satellite imagery to show us where the moist air is and where the dry air is. So you can see all around Gordon, very, very moist atmosphere. Off towards the east, plenty of dry air there. That should not be influencing at all. But also, I wanted to switch this up and show you that right now, the environment off to the northwest, the forecast track of where Gordon is heading, is not favorable in terms of the wind shear. We have an upper level low that's situated just to the north of where Gordon is, and that is pulling down some wind shear from the north as well, and that could cause some issues. But for Gordon's sake, this is somewhat good news, because in the forecast period, by the time it gets to this particular area, the environment is forecast to change and become a little more favorable. So let's talk about wind shear and exactly what it does. Hurricanes are vertical systems, right? They need to build up that thunderstorm activity to high altitudes. When there's no wind interruption in terms of wind shear,
I'm not going to leave this on for 13 minutes. I will bring updates
comes across the tops,
every
the thunderstorm tops, and displaces it off to either side from where
2
the wind shear
hours
is coming from. That tilts the system
till it leaves Florida,
weakening it. It somewhat puts the cap on further development. And if the shear is persistent and strong enough, it'll eventually just shear the storm apart, and we won't have a storm anymore. I don't think that's going to be a situation we deal with Gordon, though. Also, on the plus side for Gordon of developing further is the very warm sea surface temperatures. We were talking about that earlier. Look at these numbers here. Along its projected path, low to mid 80s. Anything north of 80 degrees is perfect tropical conditions. It all has to do with the latent heat release from the ocean surface. Also to note here, in the Gulf of Mexico, we have very deep ocean heat content. What the heck does that mean? Well, it's not just the warm water on the surface of the water. It extends down to a great depth. So what that has to
All
do with
right.
hurricane development, when a storm moves over ocean water, it mixes up the ocean, something called upwelling. It takes the cold water from beneath and mixes it up to the surface and brings the warm water down. So if it was to stay over an area for a while, it would do a lot of upwelling
Hey,
and
Sam,
eventually would run
you
out
need
of
to pay
fuel.
attention to this
In
one.
this particular scenario, and in this part of the Gulf of Mexico, that warm water extends to in depth, so it can upwell all it wants, and it's still going to have an abundance of energy and warm water to deal with. So that's something to take into account here. How are the models seeing things? Well, pretty good consistency here. There's a consensus all within that cone of uncertainty. I don't think the track forecast will be all that difficult. I think it's going to be the intensity forecast that's really going to have some surprises in it as we go through the next 36 hours as it traverses those very warm waters and eventually the lighter wind shear environment too. So out ahead of it, we already have the tropical storms warnings for the coastal waters of South Florida through Key West, off the coast of Tampa Bay, Fort Myers, and including the southern tip of Florida through Miami as well. And we slide north to the potential area of landfall as we get into early Wednesday morning, so about 2 days out from now.
Hey, Lady
New
Jane,
Orleans,
how are you,
over the
sweetie?
coastal waters of the Panhandle of Florida, Alabama and Mississippi coastal areas and coastal waters as well. So what does that mean? Warnings and watches, it's a good time to kind of refresh yourself on what those mean. Warning means it is imminent, likely, or occurring at this time. These are obviously saying that the event is occurring, which it is in South Florida and in Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and the Florida Panhandle. It's likely imminent or likely. Okay, so we'll watch it there. Watches are up for a little bit farther out in advance, about 48 hours or so. So here's how it looks in terms of any impacts. This is the latest update here from the Hurricane Center. Its probability of seeing tropical storm force winds, and this is a brand new
Yeah, we
update
had
here,
the
so I
same
just
thing 2
put this
days
up.
ago.
I didn't see it like this high already. It's been upped to 70 to 80% chance of seeing those
Lots
winds
of
gusting
lightning.
to tropical storm force,
Lots of thunder.
if not greater, out through Alabama, Mississippi, and portions of Louisiana as we get into late Tuesday night and early Wednesday. All right, let's move on to the next system now, because we got a lot to talk about today.
This
That's
one's
number
coming
two,
at
another
us,
tropical
too.
Storm Florence.
This one.
Developed also from an African easterly wave several days ago, and it's moving over an area that isn't really conducive for it to develop, yet it has, which is interesting. We're talking about marginal sea surface temperatures in the upper 70s to around 80. Some wind shear now affecting the environment of this storm.
Yes,
you can see
it
in
is.
the last couple images. What you're looking at here is the
Yeah, I
satellite
haven't had to
imagery
put it up yet.
here. So progressively, that'll probably weaken it. On top of that, it's in an area with those sea surface temperatures, as I was talking about. 78, 79, 80 off to the south of it, but it's not going to last forever. Look what happens here as we put out the track forecast of where it's heading. It is moving into progressively warmer waters the farther
Right toward the
west
East
it
Coast,
goes.
guys.
A better environment, more favorable for it to get its act together once again, strengthen, grow, and organize. Right now, and probably for the foreseeable next couple of days, it is in an environment of wind shear that's unfavorable. So we're looking at the greens here. That's some stronger wind shear. Already starting to encounter that now, and in its general track direction for the next couple of days, it is forecast to be in a wind shear environment that would be unfavorable for it to grow. It'll probably weaken a little bit, and that leads me to my next thing I want to talk about. It is going to be the overall steering and why the track forecast for this has been evolving over the last couple of days, and it has been projecting farther and farther to the west and southwest instead of originally recurving out to the north and being a fish storm, as you've probably heard. So we have an area of high pressure off to the north, a ridge. It was stuck under this ridge, and that was steering it off towards the west. Now, if Florence was much stronger systems tend to be influenced by the steering pattern, and it would be pulled north into a weak spot in this ridge and stay out into the open Atlantic. The issue now is that it's underperformed. It's a weaker system. Weaker systems are not as influenced by the overall steering pattern, and this will likely continue on a westward track until it hits that warmer water, starts to develop more, and then gets stuck under this ridge, which will be over New England. And that could throw it right at the east coast of the United States. The newest track forecast does reflect this trend off to the south and west. Just 3-4 days ago,
I live right
this
in
track
here.
was looping out even to the east of Bermuda. Now Bermuda could certainly be in play.
Yes, he is, Lady
the
Jane.
eastern seaboard, as it moves into a more favorable environment, if that ridge does build over the eastern parts of the United States, and we could see a scenario here that certainly bears watching. The good news in all this, I have about 10 days worth of time. A lot can change between now and then in the overall status of the atmosphere. Okay, so no need to worry or make any plans now, but certainly something that bears watching. How do the computer models see things right now? So what I'm showing you here is the GFS model. Each line this is called the ensemble forecast. So each line is a different run of the same model with different variables changed or tweaked at the onset, okay? So that's, notice the general sense of the ensembles is it's going to stay away from land, maybe an issue for Bermuda, but it will recurve. Why? It depicts Florence as a much stronger system, hence the recurvature. Okay, even though it's starting to weaken.
All right, guys, I'm going to call this. It's been on for 11 minutes.
With the European model.
I will put the web page up so you guys can keep track of this yourselves.
The GFS is going to be the yellow. Watch.
God bless you. Please be safe. Thank you so much for watching.
Here we are through Wednesday, the middle of the week. Very small discrepancies under the strength and the positioning. Okay, nothing to worry about there. Pretty good consensus at that point in time.